Hi, I'm Joey Hungerford with the Bend International Church of Christ, and this is our devotional for Philippians Part 7. We're focusing on Philippians chapter 2, verses 14 through 18. This is our great focus on doing everything without grumbling or complaining. Everything means everything. Even during this time of COVID-19, as disciples, we can shine bright by not grumbling or complaining. In verse 14, do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky, as you hold firmly to the word of life. And then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I do not run or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me. Everything without grumbling or complaining. Paul focused on eradicating this in the lives of the Philippians. It wasn't marginal, it was actually central. This was essential to the entire book of Philippians, one of the only corrections that he gives in the whole book. Everything, that means the thoughts and attitudes in our minds and our actions, our murmurings, what's on our lips, the words that we speak. We have to watch our critical thoughts for our inner disposition, as well as the words we say to one another to make sure we're not complaining. And remember, Paul's writing this from prison. If anyone has a right to complain, it's him. But he's addressing the Philippians, and us today as disciples, we can complain without even realizing we're complaining. We complain against the world, we can complain against God, and we can complain against other disciples. Against God, we might say things like, God, why didn't I get that job? Why did I lose my job? God, if you're sovereign, then why am I in this circumstance? We can complain against the world. We can judge the world, say, they're probably never going to be open to the gospel. Yes, they didn't show up again. Yeah, they'll never come to church. And we can even complain against other disciples. Why aren't they doing the work? Why aren't they volunteering? Why do I have to do all of this? Where are my brothers and sisters? We have to watch ourselves from complaining in all three of these areas. Don't curse the darkness, simply turn on the light. Then you will shine like a light when you stop grumbling and complaining. Don't curse the darkness, turn on the light. Many Christians, we think of being a light. We sometimes go to the world and we'll shine our light, we'll shine it right in their faces, and we'll get on them in the word, and we'll be aggressive, and we'll point it out. That's not how we should shine our light. And other Christians will kind of have our light in a corner. We'll just kind of focus on ourselves. We'll never really shine our light towards them, and they can't even see our light. Really, the way we need to shine our light is to the path, is to the Word of God. Is coming alongside others and saying, look, this is the word of life. This is what we need to illuminate for others. That's how we shine our light. Now, there's a negative light we can shine if we are grumbling and complaining. It really makes bad advertising for the kingdom, and it makes a bad witness for Jesus Christ when we grumble and complain. You see, when you complain about the kingdom and express something negative about Jesus or the church, and then you try to speak it up and be positive and welcome people into it, they'll be more inclined to believe the negative things. They'll be more inclined to believe the slander. When they hear you complaining about your spiritual family, they'll remember that more than they remember you rejoicing with your spiritual family. What kind of light are we shining for others? So we don't want to grumble or complain, and in order to do that, we need to have the right mind and the right actions in order to shine like a light. But how do we avoid that grumbling and complaining? What are some good practicals for us? Typically, we fall into complaining when we're fearful or when we're not filled with joy. Ponder that in your circumstance. Look for the joy. Despite your fear, how can you be joyful rather than complaining? When you conquer grumbling, you will be a shining child of God. In order to avoid that grumbling, we need to avoid being fearful or being unjoyful in our circumstances. Now, people may respond to our individual lives at first, to our joy, to our shining light that we're generating. But stars shine brighter when they're together. Stars shine brightest when they're in a constellation, when they're in a beautiful cosmos. And that's what it's like when we introduce somebody to the family of God, when they see a whole constellation of shining stars, a united family, a loving family. People need to see that full constellation. Now, how well are you taking on that responsibility of not just shining bright on your own, but being a part of a constellation, being unified with other disciples, sharing your faith with other disciples, inviting people to be around your kingdom family? Are you unified with others? Are you actively spending time with others in the kingdom? Are you being your part in that constellation? You know, the verse concludes with holding fast to the word of life, or holding out the word of life, holding to the word of life. And it applies in both ways. We need to hold to the word of life, hold to our convictions, but we also have to hold out the word of life. As our lives shine, we need to illuminate the word. We need to get other people into the Bible. It's not enough to just shine bright, to be joyful, to have a good personality. We need to get people into the word of God by holding them to the word of life and holding out the word of life. In the concluding verses, Paul speaks of pouring himself out like a drink offering, sacrificing himself, as if he was a cup of wine being poured onto an animal sacrifice, giving up his life, dying for them. Now for Paul, to die was gain. If he could sacrifice himself to increase their faith, then that was gain for him. Because their increased faith would lead to less grumbling and complaining, which would lead to them shining bright, which would lead to them holding out the word of life, which would lead to the gospel being proclaimed. That was Paul's end goal. And remember, it's their sacrifice first, their suffering, upon which Paul is adding his own sacrifice and suffering. This is the church that Paul rejoices in, the Philippians. He's joyful that they are already suffering and sacrificing. They're already holding out the word of life. Paul rejoices in this, and he wants to add to this. Paul is saying, I'm all in. Because you guys are already going all in, I'm all in behind you. I'm going to sacrifice my life to be united with you. You know, my ending challenge of this devotional is that we need to shine bright. Not shine into the eyes of others and not just hide our light, but illuminate the Word of God for others. We need to get other people into personal Bible studies. That's the kind of fellowship we need to be united with, shining together as a constellation. That's how we can be joyful and attractive as the kingdom. The number one thing that will kill that is our grumbling and complaining. Don't be a bad witness for the kingdom by grumbling and complaining during this circumstance. Rather be joyful and without fear. Then we will shine like stars in the sky. Thank you for watching our video. If you'd like to listen to the full lesson, the podcast is in the description down below. Leave us a comment with your thoughts and please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.